You know how governments love to support entrepreneurs, right? They announce these huge grant programs promising to fuel innovation and create jobs with taxpayer money. It sounds fantastic. But what if those big promises, those multi-million-dollar plans, are being scaled up before anyone's actually checked if they work? That's the big question we're digging into. This right here, this question gets to the absolute heart of what we're talking about today. We're looking at a massive expansion of startup funding in Meghalaya, and we're asking a simple question. Is this a smart investment based on proven success, or is it a huge gamble with public money?
So to really get that question, we've got to look at the announcement itself. And honestly, on the surface, it sounds amazing for any entrepreneur in the region. The government is really stepping up.
I mean, the sheer scale of this increase is pretty staggering. We're talking prime startup grants jumping all the way to 35 lakh rupees, scale-up loans going up to 75 lakh, and the CM Elevate subsidy is hitting 50% for certain sectors. On top of all that, there's this incredibly ambitious new goal, supporting 5,000 entrepreneurs in just 1 year. These are massive, headline-grabbing numbers.
And you know, this new plan, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It builds on a story the government has already been telling us, a story of major investment and big impact. So let's take a look at the numbers they've already put out there.
First, let's talk money, 60 crore rupees. That's how much has already been sanctioned for the first 2 phases of the main program, CM Elevate. That is a serious financial commitment, no doubt about it.
And that money, well, it reached over 2,000 individuals and businesses. 2,281 to be exact. All of them got sanction letters. So it suggests this program has a really broad reach. And now for the biggest number of them all, the result they're claiming, 10,000 jobs. This is the key success metric that's been presented to the public. So you've got big money, lots of people reached, and a huge number of jobs. The story looks great.
But this is where our investigation really kicks in. Because, it's one thing to celebrate the money you've spent. It is something else entirely to prove it actually worked. And that brings us to a really crucial difference.
Okay, so this is super important, understanding the difference between inputs and outcomes. Everything we've seen so far, that 60 crore, the 2,000 plus beneficiaries, those are inputs. That's what you put into the system. What we don't have are the outcomes, the real verifiable result of all that spending. And when you start looking for those outcomes, you find, well, nothing.
Seriously, when you try to find out what actually happened, there's a shocking lack of public information. It's like a black box. The money goes in, the letters go out, but what happens next is a total mystery.
I mean, this is probably the most fundamental question you can ask. Of all the businesses that got that funding, how many are still around today? Are we funding businesses that thrive, or are we funding projects that just fizzle out after a year? We just don't know.
And what about those bigger loans, the ones that are now being jacked up to 75 lakh rupees? A loan isn't a gift, right? Its success is measured by whether it gets paid back. That's what proves a business is healthy. So what's the repayment rate? Or even more telling, what's the default rate?
And that 10,000 jobs claim, the phrase indirect job, jobs created somewhere in the supply chain, not by the company itself, is notoriously fuzzy. How exactly is that calculated? Is there any independent verification, or is it just a rough estimate? Because without a clear method, that number is almost meaningless. So all of this adds up to this huge information vacuum. We don't know how many businesses really got off the ground, let alone how many survived. We don't have verified job numbers, loan repayment rates, or any data on whether these businesses are even turning a profit. The entire picture of how this program is actually performing is just missing. And this is what makes the decision to expand the whole thing such a high-stakes gamble. This isn't just a small oversight. This is a choice that could lead us down 2 totally different roads.
Just think about it for a second. Let's say, in scenario A, the program is a wild success. Survival rates are high, businesses are thriving. Well, then pouring more money into it is a fantastic evidence-based decision. But what if we're in scenario B? What if the real survival rate is, 30%? Then expanding the program and hiking up the grant sizes just means you are scaling up failure and burning through more taxpayer money.
And that's really the bottom line here. Without the outcome data, policymakers and us, the public, we are completely flying blind. We are forced to just guess which one of these scenarios is the real one.
So what's the fix? The good news is the path from this kind of blind faith to actual evidence-based policy, it's pretty clear. It all comes down to demanding accountability.
There are 3 really concrete steps here.
First, we need to see a full outcome report on those first 2 phases before a single extra rupee is spent. Second, any citizen can use the Right to Information Act to ask for the specific data points we've been talking about. And finally, we just need to publicly ask the tough questions about these claims and demand to see the math behind the numbers.
At the end of the day, it really comes down to this. Celebrating inputs, how much money you spend, is easy. But it's not enough. Real success is measured in outcomes. And when public money is on the line, scaling a program without first proving it works isn't just a gamble, it's fiscally reckless. The crucial question we're all left with is, are we going to get the data before the next big check gets written?